What time are we going tomorrow?
I think about 5:30.
Okay, g'day Tony. Going to a little farm for kids, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
Taking some of the grandkids on an adventure.
And me.
Yeah, she's like one of the grandkids. She'll be
Yeah.
patting sheep,
I'll be knocking the grandkids out the way so I can do it.
feeding the crocodiles.
No, you'll be doing that.
Alright. Hey, True Blue. La da la la la. Hello, Scarlet. Have you knocked up for a smoke? Hey, True Blue. Did you crap in a bag? Did you put a wig on and look like a hag? Is baby cat coming back? Hey, True Blue. Hey, True Blue. I made tonight something different. I made spaghetti bolognese, but with taco seasoning. And it was all right. Even got an approval from the boss. Never made it before. What I did was I got some ground beef, onions and garlic first. Mix in the beef, cook that down. Then I added some sauce. Cook some penne pasta up actually. Not spaghetti, penne pasta. And then mix that through, it was yum. You roasted chicken with hot paprika. Yeah, I like my 4 things I put on roast vegetables or chicken is salt, pepper, smoked paprika, and dried parsley. It looks good even before it goes in the oven. Yeah, I did actually put chilli in mine after. I'm not allowed to put it in before. I like it hot. I eat the bread that I'd made myself. So that's got a cellophane wrap of it for later on. Maybe a bit of peanut butter for supper.
You can have that.
I've got 2 types of paprika I always use. One is just the straightforward Hungarian paprika, and then I use a smoked paprika. Smoked paprika is sweeter. But like I say, when I do roast vegetables, cut them up, put them in the pan, oil them up, then I do salt, pepper, smoked paprika, and parsley. It seriously looks good enough to eat even before you cook it, and it comes out real good. See, there's only one dish I think you can't overdo paprika, and that's goulash, because that can take a lot. Sometimes too much spice kills a dish. We've got Polish extended family with Polish people, so I'll make that at Christmas for them. And they enjoy that. It's quite rich. Well, it's basically, you get a choice. If you want to make it really, really tender, you go for veal, but I use, fillet steak, basically. So it's a fairly quick process. Goulashes can be very long in their process. Mine probably only takes about half an hour. It's done. And of course, with the Polish, you've got to have the potatoes. What's that dish you make? Pierogi. Yeah, pierogi. Yeah, there's several ways. It's really a case of the flavour. I've had lots of different Hungarian and Polish are different apparently. Hungarian goulash is different. That's very common in America.
Same as German. What I make is different.
Yeah. So it's the paprika you use, the method you cook. Like I say, you can make, and I'm sure you do. Oh yeah, definitely sour cream. But you probably make a slower cook version. Polish do a very slow cook. But if you want something really tender and goulashy and creamy, if you like, you got to add all those things: onions, peppers. But potatoes are a big thing. Poland, they'll have a meal, but there'll probably be 2/3 of the dish will be whatever type of potato dish. Sometimes it's just boiled, actually. That's what just as Mum was telling me. So sometimes you just have boiled potato
Well, that's how we
in a
have
dish.
goulash. You make boiled potatoes.
Yeah, I tend to
We don't add the potato.
boil them and then rough them up and then put them in the oven for about 30 minutes, get crispy. But Poland and Hungarians eat their veggies pretty basic, just boiled. And in Russia we eat cardboard because there's plenty of cardboard. Sour cream does wonders to lots of things. People are frightened sometimes to use sour cream, g'day Tony, when you make like a cream soup. When you make, chicken soup, you can make it cream soup. You can use cream, you can use any type of cream. In fact, sour cream puts a different edge to it. Mushroom soup goes really well with sour cream. People make the one fundamental mistake is that when they put the cream in and they're still boiling the soup, it's an error. Take the soup off the heat, then add whatever cream you like. Spinach, actually I'm planting English spinach. Oh, I did that yesterday, didn't I? Got some English spinach growing. It grows well in the early part of summer here. Does not do well in the middle of summer. Does okay from now till probably Christmas. But we've got to go and get some more potting mix. My goodness. What I got? 1, 2, 3. We worked out about 12 bags, didn't we? Roughly.
But you need another 12.
About 12. Well, yeah, we have what we call perennial spinach. Looks like a tree, if that's the same one you're talking about. It grows upwards, and you can just rip all the leaves off. You can either leave it bare, and it will keep growing. It's called perennial spinach here. It's a bit bitter compared to like English spinach, or there's so many different types of spinach. My daughter had serrano chilies growing last year. Arugula, yeah, we don't call it, we call it rocket. It's exactly the same thing. It's like a weed. It looks like a weed, actually. Tastes good, bit of peppery in the salad. Very easy to grow. But you call it arugula. I don't know why, it's an American thing. It's actual rocket. It's part of, I believe, the dandelion family, not direct to the dandelion. But it's good, it self-seeds. I've just got 3 plants of pak choi that I grew this year. You might have seen a video of them in there. We had tons of them. And I let them go to seed. My goodness, there is billions of seeds on it, but I've got to give it another couple of weeks to finish setting off the seed pods. They're filling up. No, it's pak choi. It's a bit different. It grows like a flower, as in the shape of it comes up. It's not as tight as bok choy, but it's got a lot more flavour. Pak choi. I'd send you some, but I don't know if you'd be able to get them if I posted them to you. Pak choi, bok choy, there's about, I worked out when we had the seed business, I could have got over 30 lines of choy, because it's all different ones. You ever been to a Chinese market? They've got all sorts, and it's something choy. You'll order some seeds. Well, not from our company at the moment because we can't get supply. Here we are in a state where we'd have no virus, everyone's back to work, but of course, and I said this months ago, the supply chains get affected. And that's what's happened. In one of the cases, We had about 8 suppliers. One of the cases can't be harvested by machine. You know what I mean, Scarlett? They have to be hand-picked and then processed, and it's a big major issue because in parts of the country they're still not allowed to go and do that. And you only get a certain time of the year where you can harvest. So a lot of people have lost a lot of money. There's a great Chinese cabbage. It grows really tall and about 8 inches thick. It's called Michelli. That's brilliant for lots of things. Yeah, supply is going to be a lag thing, Scarlett. It's going to be like seasonal things are going to disappear off the shelf, obviously. But one of the things is that when we get things sent into countries, they have warehouses full of them. And then when it's emptied, and then there's a 3 or 4 month lag for supply, it's a big thing. I know a lot of people have tried to go into production of canning a lot of their produce, but you need a market. Paper products, oh yeah. But we're going to see a lag of up to 12 months on lots of things that we wouldn't even think of. You'll get people that you know in the US say, oh, I'm waiting for my car to be fixed, but they can't get the parts. Because we don't have one company supplied parts, we have about 50. That part that you need may not be available, and the guy will say, you hear this thing, well, we've got it ordered, but we don't know when it's coming in. Everything's a lag effect. The virus has a lag effect. The economy will have a lag effect. There's a big thump coming all over the world. Every country did the same thing, roughly, at the same time. You know, supporting people with money directly, going into debt to do it. Things like childcare in Australia was free. That's the cost factor that's gone. People's mortgages were frozen. All these things are coming undone now. So at the end of this month, and heading into October, November, there's going to be a big thump. People are going to be evicted. The eviction laws in Australia stay in place till December. Can't be evicted. But in some parts of the world, in the US, it's different in each state. Did China help the people? I wouldn't say that they're ever going to be helping. I know in Wuhan, I did read a story very early on, around March, that there were something like 3,000 people that were put in a compound and the gates were welded. So I don't know if you call that assistance. I think Chinese people are pretty much used to doing it hard on, you know, what we're talking about, working class. Middle class, different. China is really an oligarchy. It's not communist. It's like there's probably 20 to 30,000 oligarchies that are billionaires in China. And then the majority of the population are poor. And you talk about what's happening this week, it's shocking. It's absolutely disgusting. 500,000 Tibetans put into Chinese camps. I don't know if you've seen the satellite video of these camps going up over the last 6 months. But the Chinese government says they're in there for reunification and educational purposes only. Right. No. Along with the Uyghur, the Tibetans. It's like, if you want to look at a country that's very racist, it's China. We've got well over nearly 1 million Chinese in Australia. And they've been here for hundreds of years, most of them, their families. And they're the first ones to say how they appreciate living in this country. Because a lot of their money always goes back to family. Like, they can earn $100,000 a year here. They wouldn't earn that in a lifetime in China. So they're very much orientated. Filipinos do it here too. Many cultures, the Indians, Sri Lankans, they do the same thing. They send back money to their own people in their own country. Muslims, it doesn't matter in China. If you're not one of the 5 or 6 sect of Chinese, which there are, Szechuan, you know, you can go into sections and they're slightly different. But unless you're part of the major five sect, they're racist. We did a big thing in Australia about a month ago. There was a really big deal going ahead for an investment from China. And because they've been sneaky to us, Chinese came out indignation, well, you can't do this. Well, yeah, we can. And we just did. You're born in a free country. There might be a Freudian slip there, Scarlett. Yeah, but to a man and woman in Australia, seriously, if China stopped sending us goods, we'd go, okay, no worries. We can do with it, and we can move on to other markets. They don't realise, even though there's an old Chinese saying which they're doing in reverse. I forget how it goes, but it goes about standing on the toes of mice if you're an elephant, something like that. The mice will get you back. It's not quite that, but it's a very similar saying. So don't stand on mice, and that's exactly what China are doing all over the world in different countries. They've attacked Canada on many levels as well. But anyway, it's just a world in chaos. The virus hasn't made a difference as far as how people treat each other at all. China's still been a prick, whether there was a virus or not. I think I did say, you probably remember me, Scarlett, saying we would see the worst and the best out of people in the next year. We've already seen a bit of both, but some pretty tough times coming up for many people, most people. And we need to see those people take it on the chin, realise it is what it is, and help each other. Of course, that won't happen universally. There'll be riots, fighting, looting, and that's just what's going to happen. At the moment, most of the riots have been done in anger. But when it comes to riots done by necessity, like Scarlett smashing the butcher shop window to get, a leg of lamb, because she needs to feed some people, that's a different type of riot. Now, you call that something in the Great Depression. It happened initially quite early in the Great Depression, where people would just, like go to a farmer's place and steal a whole cow or half a dozen sheep. That happened early, and then people realised we can't do it that way. There's many stories in many countries about that sort of thing happening during the Great Depression. But in the end, people realised unless we can do this together, we can't do this at all. And that's true. All of Europe is heading back for lockdown again now. Too early. The impatience and the greed of the people that run the planet wanted everyone back at work. They stopped making money. Yeah, a lot of people don't realise that even after the Second World War, I was in the UK. I wasn't born until late in the 50s, but there were rations right up to the late 50s. And some things just were never supplied again in quantity. I've sat down with, I wasn't a prepper, never was a prepper, but I sat down with people like that, and they were saying all we need is bullets and beans. I'm saying, well, that's not how it works. And I said, yep, we're right, we've got a bunker, there was one guy in particular, I did change his mind. In the end, he realised. I said, you got everything. You got food for how long? 15 years, he reckons. Seriously. Had containers full of long life foods. And I said, that's good. And how many kids you got? You got 4 kids. They were like from family, get by. And he said, yeah. I said, okay, one of your kids gets a toothache, gets infected, what do? It was just dead silence for about a minute. And then he said, well, I'll learn a bit about dentistry. I said, well, okay. You can pull a tooth out. And then one of your kids, after you pull the tooth out, gets septicemia and will die unless it sees a doctor. We had a guy that made it very clear that the best person you should get to know during hard times is a vet, not a doctor. Vets do another 2 years education in Australia than doctors do. And when you think about what that means is they learn a lot more different things, and they can relate on all animals, including humans. So he realised, he said, you're right. I said, why don't you think about, and I did a map. It was a mud map. Okay, there's no transport. You got a horse maybe. I said a 20-mile radius. Put a pin where you live, and he was in Pennsylvania. And I said a 20-mile radius from now until whenever you get to all the knowledge, go out and find out where there is a spring. Find out where you can get this product, and you know that you can set up a barter system and do a mud map in a 20-mile radius. And a lot of people say that was a brilliant idea because a lot of people live in an area but don't know what's there. He told me he ended up finding 6 springs, but if you needed to, he had a spring. He said he could get water. All sorts of things that make logical sense. But I said you can't do it alone. You need a group of people. In the old days, anthropologists tells us that 5,000-6,000 years ago, villages were made up between 20 and 40 people, average about 30. And everybody in that village contributed to the extent, like a child can't contribute, but he can help granddad grind down or grandmother grind down some grain. And then there can be hunters and there can be gatherers, people that can mend and fix, make clothing, all these things. That's what used to happen. If you just simply enclose yourself and you've got all the bullets and beans you'll ever need, but one of your kids gets a toothache and gets an infection, and you have no idea what to do. Bullets and beans mean nothing then. Yep, contribute, yep. But a tribe mentality doesn't mean you have to know everything about everybody. You can have meetings and say, look, we're very good at growing produce. What do you guys do? And they might say, well, we actually farm fish. Oh, cool. So we can work trades on those, and it'll be, yeah, sure. You know, if you grow heaps of the produce, and we'll give you all the guts and heads of the fish, and you play that into the soil, it's just knowledge. But having just bullet and beans is a great idea at the time. But if you've got no other knowledge other than opening a tin and shooting at somebody, you've got a very limited lifespan. It's so true. There was a good example in the US, I think it was a couple of years ago. A farmer had a heart attack. It was up in I think Ohio, Iowa, that's where it was, Iowa. And had to get his harvest, and he needed to get his harvest off. But he was very early in hospital. In 9 hours, with 30 combine harvesters, all the district came and harvested for him. And one of the things that stood out to me is that one of the old ladies said, well, could have been any one of us. He doesn't have to thank us because we reckon that if it was me, he'd be in there helping us. What a great attitude. What a fantastic way to look at it. And I still think the guy's recovering from the heart attack, but many hands make light work, and you can hoard. And I said to this guy years ago, I said, look, if someone come on your property, what would you do? He said, I'd probably shoot them. I said, well, perhaps they've got skills. Maybe you can meet them out in no man's land and say, look, what are you after? And if they say, well, we've got nothing. And then if they explain, by chance, I'm a vet, well, So it's good to know in a 20-mile radius what's there, who's there, who produces what, and talk to each other. You don't have to meet up every weekend. You don't have to become long-loved friends, nothing like that. But if you work out that you can get a survival process going by having resources that you know you're not going to get shot at, the one thing I would do immediately, and I've done it so many times, I would go and produce salt. Imagine the lights go out, nothing happens, the wheels of commerce stop, the world goes through a down as regards population. The number one priority, starting again, would be salt, because so many things. But knowledge. I end up, and I don't do it anymore, Scarlett, but I prepared over 100 pages that people could come and print off how to make bread, how to get water from deciduous trees, how to, lots of things. I just stopped doing it in the end. But I do know a lot of people did download them and did print them off, because I said, no point just downloading it. This was years ago. I said, get it and print it off, and whatever you call that when you put it in plastic, you know, when you, what do they call that? When you seal it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife's really helpful. But anyway, so it's in plastic, it's there for
Laminated.
that's right, yeah, for a long time. Things like recipes, how-tos, and time of the year. I used to give them the website Gardenate. I knew Richard and his mother, who started that website a long, long time ago. Great website because it covers every zone all over the planet. I said, go to the page, find your area, whether you're in 8, 9, 10, whatever district it says you're in, and download it, put it in Laminate. So you know what time of the year to plant what. Because a lot of people just get confused. It's like I've had heaps of people used to say, oh, I want to grow a heap of tomatoes down. I say it's April. It's really cold. We don't grow tomatoes. And they say, yeah, but you can get them in the shop. I said, yeah, but they're either grown way up north in our country, or they've been carbon dioxide and left in a big warehouse at a certain temperature for 6 months. Eat seasonally. Catch seasonally. I really would love to see a supermarket chain start up where all they do is sell produce that's in season. It'd be a flow-on effect for people. Of course, ideally, I'd like to see people grow a lot of food. Yep. But you can imagine during really tough times, there won't be a farmer's market as we know. Because people won't want to pay for produce. We have many farmers markets, had for a very long time. The grown foods, like I say, people say, oh, it's going to be the end of the world, we're not going to survive. One person can feed a dozen. One person, 11 people can sit on their ass all year, and one person can produce enough for 12. That's an old method. And 1 acre of land is an enormous amount of land to feed 12 people. Chickens grow fast, pigs grow fast. Yeah, I still do it to this day. I will have roast chicken, and then I'll let it cool down, and then what I do is, there's plenty of meat left on it, then I make a stock out of what's left. Carrot, celery, onion, you know what I mean. I've got chicken stock, and I do it slowly over 2 or 3 hours. It's yum. It's like a broth. So it's not as if we would be panicking for food if there were no supermarkets. some would, but not over time. People would learn through necessity. Yep, chicken fat used to be highly regarded. It's like lard. That would come back in big fashion too, because I'm happy to have a bit of bread with lard on it in the morning. If that's my breakfast, that's okay. So I don't think food would be a problem as long as people are willing to learn, share, trade, because it makes a lot of sense that if I grew, 6 types of vegetable, and someone else grew another 8 types, someone grew 4 types, someone had hydroponics, whatever, within a district, and all you're growing is a tradable product. I can't eat a field of cabbages, you know what I mean? But within, the 6 weeks that the season lasts with cabbages, everybody would get cabbage, and what would they make out of cabbage? Sauerkraut, pickled cabbage, you name it. There'd be cabbage available all year, it just wouldn't be in the fresh form. Brining used to be, I'm sure you know, brining used to be pretty big. I used to go to the bush when I was younger, and we'd go to people's places and they'd have a big larder full of brined food. You name it, it was brined. Pumpkin is the best vegetable to grow, because I can give you a handful of pumpkin seeds today, and if you lived for another 100 years, Scarlett, you could still plant them and they would still grow. They are the perfect sealed seed. There's nothing that comes close, and of all of them, the butternut is the one that will survive the longest. It's perfect in its design. Some other seeds only last a few years.
Why don't you turn the phone around to yourself a bit more? You seem to be a bit, isn't it, too far around this way for you?
Is that going to make you happy?
Well, just easy. You seem to be twisting yourself.
Production team has complained, so I've had to change it. That's better? Yes, yep. As are tomatoes and yams. There's a lot of ancient foods that don't look like we have today. They would have come in different forms. I do know prehistorically they've found, you call it an acorn pumpkin. That goes back 3 million years. It used to be a vine, as pumpkins are, but a long extended vine. It would grow like a tomato. Part of the tendril would hit the ground, set roots, keep going, as tomatoes. If you really let a tomato bush grow, and don't stake it, just let it grow, and it's an indeterminate tomato, you can get 30 feet out of a tomato bush. People say, no, you can never do that. Yes, you can. They do exactly what I just said. They go up and down on the ground, and where the ground hits, they'll set roots. Yeah, like I say, of all the squashes though, the pumpkins, the butternut, just last longer. You used to get Kent, Jarrahdale, Queensland Blues. They're really hard skinned, but they're really big pumpkins. Whereas you can get your butternuts as small as only 5 inches long and about 4 or 5 inches wide. The best ones I've kept is, 8-10 inches long by about 8 inches wide. And they're perfect. Yeah, I used to sell the Atlantic pumpkin. There's competitions all over Australia. It's not even really good for cow feed, it's not really, you can eat it, it's just not something I'd go for. Hello, Sean. Good, mate? Yeah. Summer's coming. Got the fan on at night time. It's 20 degrees. And the boss says it's cold. We had 90 2 days ago.
What's happening where you are, Sean?
Yeah, what's happening where you are, Sean? Anything exciting? Yeah, 90 is good. We'd take, we'll probably take a bit higher, about 92, 30, 32 or 33. We like that. That's good. We've had a really wet winter. Last summer was the hottest summer I can remember. Your father-in-law's been given 4 to 6 weeks to live. Well, I hope everyone gathers around him and spends the last part of his life showing appreciation and love. Best be done. We lose people, and we know they're going. Sometimes there was a philosopher that said it'd be best if we all just died in our sleep, and I get it. Like there's no pain or passing. And if you were given the option, would you die in your sleep? And you said yes, I would answer you by saying, well, what night will you die? So you'd stay awake all the time. You know what I mean? It's catch-22. We are going to go. Good night, Tony. Tony will now get his little baby cat toy, snuggle up into bed. I look at death probably the same as some people, maybe a bit differently. I often, when people have been suffering for so long, I want them to go quicker. Just for them, not me. Because dying is a process that other people mourn, not the person who's dying. It's like, in most cases, if it's pain related, they really don't want to be here. And the prolonged process of being kept alive is sometimes quite cruel in my eyes. Oh, look, this is a true story. My mother got cancer of the stomach when she was 40. And she died at 70 with 3 other cancers that in the end one got her. But yeah, it's not like it used to be. I remember when I was a kid, someone said, oh, someone's got cancer. And then a few weeks later, they're being buried. And I think, wow, this stuff, cancer's pretty mean. I think that's got a lot to do with it. My wife's dear mother was born August the 3rd. She died August the 3rd. She waited.
Yeah, 84 years later.
Yep, it's true. And then on the morning of her birthday, the day she died, I've told the story where I found, because Mandy's mother's German, so I found Marlene Dietrich singing Happy Birthday. Now, Mandy's mum had been comatose for a couple of days and just ticking along. And it was just after midnight, and I said to her, can I play this? And the wife said, yep. Well, her mum sat up in bed and sang the whole song all the way through, and at the end said, happy birthday to me. She's talking about herself. That's the last thing she ever said. But during the process of singing, it was normal, wasn't it? It was like absolutely normal. So from being comatose for a 3-minute song, and that's it. She passed away 8-10 hours later. So that's the truth. It was quite beautiful to see, and it shows that even while we're going, parts of us aren't gone. '92's. If someone said, would I take 92, I'd say, yep. Pretty sure Scarlett would say the same thing, and Sean. Seems a fair innings to me. Well, that may be true of most people. Like, we're merely energy. except people in a tin can van. There is no energy there at all. He's passed already. He doesn't even know it. But yeah, well, good on her. I think you have to have a purpose. As insignificant as it may sound, like doing a little bit of gardening when you're really, really old, that is the purpose. Like you plant the seed, watch it grow, water it. Maybe you don't do a lot of gardening as you get older, but you do a bit. So we all need purpose, but you don't need to be old needing purpose. You need to be any age to have a purpose. Oh, look, the morning process, Sean, happens now. You've been through it, you know what I'm saying. You do all the thinking and being upset, crying, but when your loved ones pass, this is what I did with my sisters when my mother passed. We sat round and joked and included mother who'd passed away with her eyes open. She had beautiful blue eyes. We included her in the conversation about when we were kids and what we did, and it was like we all just got this huge sigh of relief and just talked about that sort of thing. And it was a wonderful experience. Yes, my mother passed, but you don't understand it until you've been through it, where you mourn all the process through the dying process. And then there's a sense of, it's not happiness, but it's relief and acceptance. Because while someone's dying, you don't want them to. And as much as we would like to wave a magic wand, we don't get to choose. It is. It's one of those things that you sometimes have to remind people that it's not them who's dying. So being selfish and wanting things to be different doesn't help the person dying. I'm pretty sure that most people just want someone to hold the hand, talk to them, relive certain things, memories, some funny moments, and that probably would do most people. But we're all going to have that little journey, sooner or later. It's an adventure that we know nothing of. But Scarlett is a reincarnation. She used to be a Democrat in a previous life. Sorry, I couldn't help that. Boom, boom. No worries. Have a good day. Put your mask on, avoid the smoke, and enjoy yourself. You've got these birds this time of year, they're always singing. All right, mate, have a good one. They're woolies, aren't they? Or finch. I think there's woolly wagtails.
Woolly wagtail.
The magpies are starting. We get a lot of birds.
No, they haven't. They're finished doing that now.
Yeah, birds, the maggies go through about 6 weeks of singing at night. Singing for a mate, obviously. Now it's the woolly wagtail's turn. I did read yesterday, Scarlett, that they are going to introduce by, I think it's 2030 or 35 in California, you can't buy a combustion engine vehicle. Good on them. Of course, all the people involved with oil won't like that. Did get our electricity bill today, Scarlett, and we're still in credit. Solar panels working beautifully. Yeah, they talk to that, but basically what they're saying is that most cars on the road in California will indeed be electric. Hello, Kelly. Nice to see you. Thank you very much. We're going off to take the grandkids to a petting farm park thing tomorrow, so that'll be good fun.
We've got heaps of parsley.
Our parsley just grows magnificently. It's like a big bush. No tea, you drink it.
Compress.
Lots of herbs have antiseptic qualities, actually. It's the process of them protecting themselves I read up on. Through photosynthesis, they actually produce chemicals within the leaves that deter, but actually are an antiseptic or of antiseptic quality. Well, we've got another week now of cooler weather. This time last year it was hundreds, so we're not arguing. I do use a bit of sesame seed oil in cooking, not much, just a bit. You can overdo the sesame seed oil. Yep, yep. I think that's the one I've got actually. It's got that sort of nutty, smoky flavour. It's like balsamic vinegar. Not many people use that, but I'll use that in marinades. Get a nice piece of steak and just put a bit of garlic and balsamic vinegar and rub it in. Leave it for an hour or two. Magnificent taste. So when you do reduction, so you're making mushrooms for the top of your steak, the old shallots, onions, garlic, butter, balsamic vinegar. Chuck
That's
that in.
what ours is, Scarlett. That's our brand.
Yep, Medina. Yep. Yep. I've got so many condiments. Actually, if you went into my cupboard, a lot of them would be familiar to you. You don't have to use things like oyster sauce and all these other things for Chinese cooking only. You can use them in other processes as well.
Dinner was not nice. Every time I do a birth or something, something's repeating on me.
Could be the garlic. I put a fair bit of garlic in it.
I can taste taco. It's tacos.
I've got 2 cupboards full. I don't know, 50 bottles or jars, whatever you want to call it. But I like to dabble and taste and mix the flavours. It's like our young daughter Jess made that really. She went to a huge effort, didn't she, making that dinner? So I'm going to do the return favour for her. I'll make a flash dinner. Yep, I've always said if you're a cook, you're an alchemist. You create as you go along. And I'm more than happy that this week's shepherd pie tastes a bit different than last week's shepherd's pie. I'm okay with that. Because at the time I'm thinking, oh, I'll try a bit of this, dabble of that. That is the, like people say, oh, I always liked my grandmother when she used to cook this. And I'm thinking, I bet she made it slightly different each time, depending on what was available. But we can get away with the basics as long as you've got bread, milk, vegetables. You're pretty good. I did read during the potato famine, there was more than one famine, but during the potato famines, if you had milk and some type of root vegetable, potatoes if you were lucky, not all potatoes got destroyed, you had all the elements you needed to survive. Got one plane coming in after. We're getting a fair bit more traffic now, aren't we?
Oh,
I do that all the time. I'll look in the fridge, look in the larder where all my veggies are, and think, okay, I'll make that. So what I've got on hand determines what I'm going to cook. She'll have a drink of aqua. So what are you doing this weekend, Scarlett? What are you getting up to? Your garden must be, you're saying you finished your harvest, must be bits and pieces left there. Root vegetables, potatoes, carrots, turnips. Oh yeah, Caesar salad's yum. You got no root vegetables in the ground still? My granddad used to leave a lot of the root vegetables in the ground in the middle of winter. He'd just dig them up. Sort of temperatures are you getting down to at night now? Yeah, but they'll split with the frost, the squash will. I know, like I say, we used to have piles of, in a root cellar, which was under the house of a grandfather's place. Big shelves, wire shelves he built, hay and sand that he got in during the summer. And I used to help him cover his turnips, carrots, any root vegetable, just cover it. And then he didn't worry about separating them, they're all mixed in but apart from each other. And cover them with about 2 inches of very loose sand, and then put straw on top. And then he would just go, or his wife would just go down and take what she needed for that night. And they'll keep for 5 to 6 months in the root cellar. I suppose it was about, wasn't freezing, but it was just above freezing, if you know what I mean. They're a good combination, apples and cabbage. What did Jess make? She made apples and what as a side dish to the pork? What was that?
it was apple and something with the pork. And
Wasn't
then
cabbage though.
with the pork, and then there was broccoli and.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the side. Oh, it was apple and leek. That was a good combination. I'd never tried that before. I've got some nice baby leeks I'll be pulling up in a couple of weeks. And some red onions, they're still growing, and some spring onions. But I do know that my grandmother used to spend probably the last month of harvest, if you like. So that would be probably October, late October in the UK. She would be making all the preservatives, all the jams, apple sauces, you name it. Cupboards full of stuff. They were never big jars, they were always like 8-ounce type size, which is enough for a meal, I guess. And the pickles, that's why I first fell in love with eating pickles. She used to pickle everything. Yeah, I never freeze pasta because I can make it fresh. If you've got flour in a good container, you don't need to make the product. This is just me. I'd rather make it fresh. Pasta's the easiest thing in the world to make. Showed my daughter once. I just made an egg pasta, which was 2 egg yolks. I don't know, 3 cups of flour, pinch of salt, tiny bit of oil, mixed it all up, and I'd put it in the fridge, and the daughter came around and I told her what I'd done. And I said to her, okay, now we're going to cut it into 4. We're only going to use 2 of them today. And she said, well, what are we making? I said, I've got a broth, bits of beef, veg, like consomme, but a broth. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to roll it out, cut it just into ribbons. You can make fancy bits and pieces if you want to, but just cut it into ribbons about, it would be about 1/2 inch thick. And then I said, when we're nearly ready to eat, just drop it all in. And it only takes 3 or 4 minutes, fresh pasta. And she still does it to this day. She just thinks it's simple, it's fresh. And fresh pasta is a lot tender. Sometimes I've been to people's places and they've bought pasta and they've undercooked it or they've overcooked it. As soon as pasta virtually floats, fresh pasta comes up in the broth, you're ready to go. Yeah, dumplings are good. I grew up in dumplings. Like I said, we had lots of broths when I was a kid. There wasn't much meat or chicken, nothing like that. It was always bones, big bones. I remember my grandfather just sawing up a whole heap of bones, and they go to this enormous copper. So they'd have a broth going, and the same broth sit on the back of the stove all year, and they just use that broth to make meals. So near the end of a cooking process, they would simply just add the dumplings and woof, that's what used to fill you up, dumplings. Chicken dumplings are nice. You can do so much with dumplings, you just got to add whatever you want in there. But I did warn my daughter once because she said, oh, it turned out terrible. I said, what sort of flour did you use? She said, self-raising. I said, did it go all funky and funny? She said, yeah, it's terrible. Don't use self-raising flour. Plain flour. I can honestly sit down at night and just have a beef broth or a chicken broth. It's just so satisfying. It's like it gets into your bones, I think. I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's really good. Yep, you can add yogurt. Depends how I used to like mine, they were fluffy but firm. My mum used to make them look like little cauliflowers when they come out. You probably know what I'm talking about. But I know a friend of mine, he was Italian. That's the first time I told people that I came across olive oil. I was only a young kid. But his mum used to make this pasta. It was rolled out in strips of about 1 inch. And you had to watch really carefully because she was so fast. You just pick up a ribbon and just use her thumb and tear straight into the pot. Imagine a ribbon of fresh pasta, Scarlett. And this old granny used to just use the thumb and use the other thumb and forefinger just to snap them off. Straight into it. So they end up like, I don't know if I'd name a pasta that it looked like, but it was sort of spoonish. But the speed, it was like, so probably about 2 cups of flour was used to make to feed about 8 people with what else that she was cooking. So fast. I just, you sit there and my mate said, are we going to go? I said, no, I just want to watch your grandmother for a bit longer. This is amazing. But if the worst come to the worst, if you had flour, and like 2-minute noodles, but not 2-minute noodles, if you had chicken stock, beef stock, vegetable stock, doesn't matter. It's sort of like a very nice type of ramen noodle that you make yourself. And she had, and I've never seen it to this day, you know, like a pizza roller that you cut a pizza up with scarlet. She used to have, it was about 12 blades. I have no idea what it was. And she had different heads. Some of the jagged, some of the straight, and it made different cuts of pasta. But she could make spaghetti just by going zip, zip, zip in the pot. So I thought, Jesus, clever. Yeah, it's not. It's sort of, when you pick up a packet of ramen noodles and you realise it feels like cardboard, your expectation should be low. But just like I say, just roll out your pasta. And people say, how thin? I say, so you can see through it. They go, what? Really thin. And you can't make a mistake. Even if you just used a knife and they weren't all that straight, when it goes into the pan, beautiful. Pierogi, yep. Jess's mum makes pierogi. A lot of people think, oh, it's got to be really fancy. Pierogi's really basic. And it's, as her mum told me once, and I said, what was the main ingredients that went into your pierogi when you were young? In Poland, she said, whatever was around. It's like pied. It's different. It depends what is seasonal. There's some standard ingredients, then there's what's available. That's right, potato. Other roots used to use swede, turnip. You call them, what do you call them? Anyway, the root vegetables. That's what you call them, rutabaga. Again, I don't know why you call them rutabaga, but you do. I'm not growing root vegetables. They just take too much space up, and we haven't got a garden as such. We've got raised garden beds and big pots. So root vegetables, and they're just so cheap here because we grow all of them in the district. Yeah, they're turnips. That's what we call them. Are you scaring the lurkers?
Careful.
Have we got lurkers?
We've got about 7 of them.
Oh, have we? Hello, lurkers. I didn't even notice. If you're there in the corner taking notes, that's okay. But I love summer crops. Tomatoes, chilies. But not only do I grow chilies to eat and process, to freeze, I use them to make my garden pesticide. That's all right. We can shut it down, Scarlett. If you're tired and your old fingers like mine, I don't
Okay.
like typing. It drives me
Bed
nuts.
soon, and we'll pick us up about 9:15.
Oh, okay.
And I went to bed early last night.
Might do a little video and show you the
My
farm we
phone.
go to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Kids will love it. Yeah, we got heaps of them. There's one I want to take all the grandkids down to, that one that we haven't been to yet.
Yeah, I know.
Kahuna is called,
Yeah, you just remember the
in the
name.
bush. Kahuna Park. Always find it funny. You go to one of these petting farms and you go past the emus and the kangaroos on the road, to go to a park where you can see the kangaroos and emus. It's always a bit of an irony. We took kids to Margaretha once, and someone having to go, William, what was it, the emu? Or
Can't remember.
he wasn't too keen on that. And then, of course, they were fighting to sit on my knee. All the boys get jealous of each other. Well, they did when they were young. You get one sit on my knee and you're talking, and another one come up, push their way in. And William spat it one day, didn't he? Wagon rides, yeah, all those sort of things.
This farm thing, I don't know. It's not your normal petting zoo. It's something different, more interactive and... Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it's called.
They got some really good ones. We went to one where they were showing shearing. Where did we go to that one? Remember that show they did, the shearing show?
That's out that way. That's...
That was, yeah, we've been there before. And then we went on the train ride.
Yeah.
Down south of our state, they've got a really great bunch of people that keep steam trains going. And that's always a thrill to go on. It's Dwelling Up, isn't it, I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwelling Up. Yeah, 2 minutes, good shearer. They get paid by the sheep. Well, not literally paid by the sheep, but paid for each sheep they shear. Tough job though. I used to play sport with shearers and go out to farms. Shearers are very quiet. You can sit down and have a cup of coffee with a shearer and there's no words. They don't speak. Oh, they pay for the weight of the fleece to the farmer, but the farmer pays the shearers for each sheep he shears. Each shearer has his own pen. So at the end of the day, they count the amount of sheep. They do that through a gate. So if it's 200, so they're getting paid $3 a sheep, they get $600. So it's always cash on the day, boom. And the deal with shearers in Australia is the farmer's got to put them up for accommodation and food. There's no if or but about that. That's not paid for. That's paid for by the farmer. So they have what they call shearers' quarters. Usually pretty good. Most farms, Mum would ring the bell. They have a big outside table. If there's a dozen shearers, you've got rouseabouts as well, and what we call clippers that pick up the edge of the sheep, dags if you like, and they all sit at the same table and eat whatever's being laid up there. Plenty of bread. Shearers love bread. But this country was sort of built on the sheep's back. You think about the merino wool, which were exclusive in Australia. that's the predominant wool even used to today. But you talk about what we exported early on in our colony, it was wool. And just like all over the world, we had our gold rushes. And the people that made the most money, Scarlett, in Australia during the gold rush years, which was 30 or 40 years, was the Chinese who used to do the laundry and sell water. My goodness, shilling a bucket it used to be. It was, well, not really. Predominantly early on there was the English colony, but then out came all types of people from different parts of the world. Yeah, early on sheep wasn't exported, it was just the wool. It's too hard to, sell sheep on a boat. But wool, yeah. All those lights come on?
My freaking was flashing.
Ah, must be dying for the night.
I'm going to lay down for I'm going to bed soon.
Yeah, wool. It was definitely wool. Like I say, made a lot of very rich people. Those names that started exporting wool, in the late 17th century, 18th century, their families today are still rich. That's your mum's, isn't it?
What?
Dressing gown you got on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got to redo the buttons.
Yeah, it's a bit daggy, Looks like it's going to fall off.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know how old that is, but it's pretty old. Yeah. All right, we'll call it quick. She's going to go and play a few games, and I think she's started.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Have a great day, Scarlett. Whatever you end up eating tonight, be it Caesar salad or dumplings, still going to sound good. So we'll catch up with you. And all of those people sitting in the corner, apparently, I can see you. You over there? And you mob? What are you up to? See you next time.